credibility and security, he wrote. After that episode, I knew I had to follow through with my plans to leave the federal government. Ridge announced his resignation on November 30th, 2004 and left office on February 1st, 2005. The Bush administration denied Ridge's assertions, however. Quote, "Nobody's more surprised than I am," unquote, according to then Homeland Security Advisor Fran Townsend. He told CNN's Wolf Blitzer this. Of course, Tom Ridge never, quote, "Of course, Tom Ridge never expressed those concerns while he was in the administration, nor did he when I spoke to him after he left. He wasn't the only one in that meeting who suggested the terror alert should not be raised, and no time was there a decision of politics in that meeting." Right. And the president was made a consensus recommendation from the council that he accepted not to raise the terror alert. Townsend is now a national security contributor for CNN. Well, I have to say, despite the fact that we won't be able to crack more jokes about the color system, those jokes had already been, reaching the tired point anyway. I hadn't even heard many jokes about the color-coded system other than the jokes that I just cracked. But hey, I think I gave it a pretty fair send-off. Figured, it came in with jokes. It's the butt of the jokes coming in. It'll be the butt of the jokes going out. So there you go. No more silly color-coded threat system. It will be replaced by something that will assuredly be probably just as pointless and probably just as fear-inducing. I know I chuckle at that, and I probably shouldn't, but it's just when you see this stuff day in and day out, and you deal with it every second of your life, if you don't learn to just laugh at the absolute psychotic absurdity of it all every now and again, it tends to weigh on you. So if you dislike it or not, I will chuckle. Moving on, the New York Times. Former spy with agenda operates a private CIA. Dwayne R. Clarridge parted company with the Central Intelligence Agency more than 2 decades ago, but from poolside at his home near San Diego, he still runs a network of spies. Over the past 2 years, he has fielded operatives in the mountains of Pakistan and the desert badlands of Afghanistan. Since the United States military cut off his funding in May, he has relied on like-minded private donors to pay his agents to continue gathering information about militant fighters, Taliban leaders, and the secrets of Kabul's ruling class. Hatching schemes that are something of a cross between a Graham Greene novel and Mad Magazine's Spy vs. Spy, Mr. Clarridge has sought to discredit Ahmed Wali Karzai, the Kandahar power broker who has long been on the CIA payroll, and planned to set spies on his half-brother, the Afghan president Hamid Karzai, in hopes of collecting beard trimmings or other DNA samples that might prove Mr. Clarridge's suspicions that the Afghan leader was a heroin addict, associates say. Mr. Clarridge, 78, who was indicted on charges of lying to Congress in the Iran-Contra scandal and later pardoned, is described by those who have worked with him as driven by conviction that Washington is bloated with bureaucrats and lawyers who impede American troops in fighting adversaries and that leaders are overly reliant on mercurial allies. His dispatches, an amalgam of fact, rumor, analysis, and uncorroborated reports, have been sent to military officials who, until last spring at least, found some credible enough to be used in planning strikes against militants in Afghanistan. They are also fed to conservative commentators including Oliver North, a compatriot from the Iran-Contra days, and now a Fox News analyst, Brad Thor, an author of military thrillers and frequent guest of Glenn Beck. Interesting. He's ex-CIA. He's still running networks to try to find out if Karzai's brother is a heroin addict. And I don't know personally for sure, but I would suggest that it's very possible he's using some substance of the like, seeing as how he's, I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the world's the world's or wait, is that correct? No, never mind. I'm thinking of um, the brother of Ahmadinejad, I believe. Um, Moving on. For all the you can top this qualities to Mr. Claridge's operation, it is a startling demonstration of how private citizens can exploit the chaos of combat zones and rivalries inside the American government to carry out their own agenda. It also shows how the outsourcing of military and intelligence operations has spawned legally murky, clandestine operations that can be at cross purposes with America's foreign policy goals. Despite Mr. Claridge's keen interest in undermining Afghanistan's ruling family, President Obama's administration appears resigned to working with President Karzai and his half brother, who is widely suspected of having ties to drug traffickers. Oh wait, no, I was correct. I was thinking of the right guy then. That was Karzai. That wasn't Ahmadinejad. Okay, I was right the first time. Charles E. Allen, a former top intelligence official at the Department of Homeland Security who worked with Mr. Claridge at the CIA, termed him an extraordinary case officer who had operated on, quote, the edge of his skis in missions abroad years ago. But he warned against Mr. Claridge's recent activities, saying that private spies operating in war zones, quote, can get both nations in trouble and themselves in trouble. He added, "We don't need privateers." The private spying operation, which the New York Times disclosed last year, was tapped by a military desperate for information about its enemies and frustrated with the quality of intelligence from the CIA, an agency that colleagues say Mr. Claridge now views largely with contempt. The effort was among a number of secret activities undertaken by the American government in a shadow war around the globe to combat militants and root out terrorists. So basically what we have going on here is indeed uh, Blackwater, but instead of being mercenaries, they're essentially uh, mercenary spies. It seems. And it also shows, this is back to the article, it also shows how outsourcing of military intelligence operations has spawned legally murky. Oh, clandestine. Okay. Sorry, that was one paragraph back. And oh, you've got to be kidding me! I actually can't read the rest of the article. I went to click on the read full article link, and apparently the New York Times has either pulled the article or it's only up for a number of, like a day or two or whatever, and then you have to have an account to see it. So actually, that pretty much was the entire article. There was only a little bit to go. But yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like basically what's going on here is we have an intelligence equivalent of Blackwater now. Private contractors, but instead of being, like ex frontline Marine type people, um, we're talking CIA, privately contracted. And I think what we'll do now is move on to this article here from the Washington Post. Headline: Domestic use of aerial drones by law enforcement likely to prompt privacy debate. And oh, yes, I'm sure it will. And it should. This written by Peter Finn. The suspect's house, just west of this city, sat on top of a hill at the end of a steep, exposed driveway. Agents with the Texas Department of Public Safety believe the man inside had a large stash of drugs and a cache of weapons, including high-caliber rifles. As dawn broke, a SWAT team waiting to execute a search warrant wanted a last-minute aerial sweep of the property, in part to check for unseen dangers. But there was a problem. The department's aircraft section feared that if it put up a helicopter, the suspect might try to shoot it down. So the Texas agents did what no state or local law enforcement agency had done before. In a high-risk operation, they launched a drone. A bird-sized device called a Wasp floated hundreds of feet into the sky and instantly beamed live video to agents on the ground. The SWAT team stormed the house and arrested the suspect. Quote, "The nice thing is, it's covert," said Bill C. Neighbors, Jr., chief pilot with the Texas DPS, who in a recent interview described the 2009 operation for the first time publicly. Quote, "You don't hear it, and unless you know what you're looking for, you can't see it." Unquote. The drone technology that has revolutionized warfare in Iraq, Afghanistan, and Pakistan is entering the national airspace. Unmanned aircraft are patrolling the border with Mexico, searching for missing persons over difficult terrain, flying into hurricanes to collect weather data, photographing traffic accident scenes, and tracking the spread of forest fires. But the operation outside Austin presaged what could prove to be one of the most far-reaching and potentially controversial issues, or I should say uses, of drones as a new and relatively cheap surveillance tool in domestic law enforcement. For now, the use of drones for high-risk operations is exceedingly rare. The Federal Aviation Administration, which controls the national airspace, requires the few police departments with drones to seek emergency authorization if they want to deploy one in an actual operation. Because of concerns about safety, it only occasionally grants permission. But by 2013, the FAA expects to have formulated new rules that will allow police across the country to routinely fly lightweight, unarmed drones up to 400 feet above the ground, high enough for them to be largely invisible, eyes in the sky. Such technology could allow police to record the activities of the public with high-resolution infrared and thermal imaging cameras. One manufacturer already advertises one of its small systems as ideal for, quote, urban monitoring, unquote. The military, often a first user of technologies that migrate to civilian life, is about to deploy a system in Afghanistan that will be able to scan an area the size of a small town. And the most sophisticated robotics use artificial intelligence to seek out and record certain kinds of suspicious activity. But when drones come to perch in numbers over American communities, they will drive fresh debates about the boundaries of privacy. Absolutely they will. These things shouldn't be flying around in any sort of public area, city, country, unless you're at war and it's absolutely necessary, or in the few cases where it is used now in some sort of crazy emergency, I can understand that. Basis on a situation by situation basis. Now, on the other hand, to just have these things flying around, spying on Americans, using that kind of imagery, we're talking about these people, these alleged peace officers. That's what they're supposed to be, by the way, peace officers, not police policy enforcers for the Corporation of the United States of America. That's not what this is supposed to be about. These people are supposed to be peace officers guarding the peace, keeping the peace. They're not supposed to be policemen. Police policy. They police the policy of the Corporation of the United States of America. Is all they do. Quote, "Drones raise the prospect of much more pervasive surveillance," said Jay Stanley, a senior policy analyst with the American Civil Liberties Union Speech, Privacy, and Technology Project. "We are not against them absolutely. They can be a valuable tool in certain kinds of operations, but we don't want to see this. But what we don't want to see is their pervasive use to watch over the American people. And I can guarantee you that is exactly what they will use them for as soon as they allow it to happen. As soon as they allow them released and to be flying around here, as soon as they give individual police departments control over them and the ability to do that, I promise you that's exactly what they're going to be used for. You know why? You know why I'm so absolutely sure of that? Human nature. That's why it is. It's human nature. It's nothing more. It's nothing less. There are people that are going to use these things to their advantage to do absolutely